This is what makes Pirates great. What makes Pirates great in these cup games is that, believe it or not, that team was under pressure. The way they started the season, the way they ended the season. The coach who's under the shadow of Coach Jose, one of the greatest Pirates coaches. The players, some of them who have to step onto that pitch and be in the shadow of players that have won 5 trophies in 3 years prior to this. That team was under pressure, but what makes Pirates different to every other team in the league when it comes to cup competitions is that there's no team that manages pressure quite like how Pirates does. A lot of the time, these finals are not about your tactics. They're not about your play. They're not about what happens in the game. Most of the time, it's about moments. And no team is ready for a moment like Pirates. No team holds their nerve like Pirates does. Because when we get into the game, these two teams are similar, very similar. Both teams believe in a front four concept. They believe in a Devon Titus, a Barnes, a Mojela, a De Jong. They believe in Mfukeng, Sibelebele, Mahopa, and Mbule. They don't play through the middle. So where Pirates won't play the ball to Abonduli, Nabombata, who don't usually get that ball in places to turn. Similar situation when you look at Stellenbosch, who don't build through Abo Palace, Nabom Tiani, for example. So we knew going into the game that it was going to be a back and forth, right? It was going to be a game that was very open, very exciting. Now, both teams also maybe were let down a little bit by their final third play in that both teams couldn't finish, which is a criticism I have about our football, in that our final third play is not coordinated enough. The people don't know what to do. There was a reverse ball played by Sibelebele where he was trying to play to Mahopa, and Umahopa hadn't read that that ball was coming back to him, number one. But then number two, if you take a few steps back, it was a 4 versus 3, with Pirates having 4 players versus 3 defenders from Stellenbosch. And the other 2 didn't know where to go to become dangerous. So I think it's something that we need to coach into our game, to really get our players on board with what they need to do in the final third and how to make easy chances for themselves when they get into the dangerous space of the pitch. When you look at the defenses, I think today Pirates was a lot more defensive in this game in terms of not pushing their people up, because I think they understood the danger of having Barnes and Titus available. Last time Stellenbosch beat Pirates came from a Titus goal that came from came from the right hand side of Pirates' defense when Van Rooyen was gone. So they made sure that Libito was not as active going forward. They made sure that they were staying at the very least in a back three if Hoto was to push. And I think what that did was that it killed a little bit of the game for Sibilibele and Mfukeng, because those guys need the overloads from their defenses in order for them to be dangerous when it comes to the left and right backs, where you see the spaces most often happen. Urile struggles a little bit when he doesn't have the partners that he normally has. So he doesn't have a Tito, he doesn't have a Hoto pushing all the way up to isolate the right back, more specifically to isolate that guy and play around him and give him some 1v1s playing directly. And the experiment still continues to put Relay in the middle. When you look at Stellies, I'm still unsure whether a Barnes can play with a De Jong, because Barnes, for those who don't know, a couple of years ago, Barnes was the player that had created the most chances in the league. So that tells you that there's somebody who's not necessarily going to run in behind, who's not going to be a runner. He's more of a player that likes the ball at his feet. So playing him out wide is a little bit tough, because he doesn't have the same responsibilities as what maybe you'd normally have centrally at the Richards Bay. And you look at a De Jong, who I think, again, one of the best 10s in the league. He was a little bit lost today, maybe owing to the fact that Mbata and And Dooley did a little bit better when you talk midfield on midfield to close up those gaps. De Jong wasn't able to really put the ball down and put the ball down and play the ball through, similar to how he normally plays the ball through normally from that 10 position that he normally takes. So I think maybe they needed more of a runner player on the right-hand side. Maybe you move a Mujela to the right and you put a Cupido up, or vice versa, in order to give you those three options when attacking. Masterful defending again, I think, from Mbogazi and Siema, because today Mbogazi, who's usually the guy who plays the ball, I've often said Pirates' game is predicated on one of the centre backs playing long balls. And I know people fight me on this, but if you watch the game, you'd realize that that responsibility today fell on Siema, and Siema was looking for that ball over the top to Urile, to release Urile on that side. Still, they need to work on it. It's not something that they're doing very well. Stellenbosch itself was also not a team through in Yinaya who are allowing Pirates as much space in behind. So Usbelebele couldn't use his pace. Urile wasn't getting those 1v1s, like I said earlier, but also it became a physical fight on the outside. And when it comes physical, there was a scrap between Yinaya and Mfukeng. But when it becomes physical, I think Mfukeng fall away from the game, right? And Mfukeng is the type of player who might not be available for 80 minutes, but he will pop up in a certain situation, which I'll speak about later. But what I want to touch on is that, again, a lot of the time, finals are not about what you do in the game. Finals are about moments and how you handle moments and how you handle the ebb and flow of a final. And this is where I think Steve Barker may have lost it a little bit, which is something that he does a lot. I think he did it in the previous game that they played versus Pirates in a cup game, where I still can't explain it, but with 20 minutes left, he decides that I'm going to take out Titus, I'm going to take out Barnes, I'm going to take out Mojela, I'm going to put in Abu Lisibangu, who didn't really do anything. And I don't know if he was playing to try go to penalties or he was playing to try go through that, but I'm thinking to myself, you still have to play Pirates for 50 minutes. You still have to play Pirates for 50 minutes. And even if you play your best defensive football, what you need to have is outlets when you do get the ball. And if Nku's your outlet, I don't think you're going to get something there. So why take out a Mojela that, fine, you might say he wasn't giving you goals, but why take out a Mojela that had kept that Pirates defense busy, especially in that second half? Stellenbosch came out and they were on top of Pirates for some time in that second half. You take out the Titus, who, like I said, was the guy who scored the last time. He's your most important, most dangerous player on that pitch. And now you leave De Jong to sort of float on the pitch, not having people around him. Cupido, I don't think, is as intense as Mojela. So when he made those changes, I remember sitting back and thinking to myself, okay, this is where Pirates wins it. Because what Pirates does again so well is they're willing to do what needs to be done to win. So I think in a game versus Sundowns, where you know that Sundowns' bench is very strong, you try and win the game in the 90. You try and kill them in the 90 so that you don't have another 30 minutes versus the quality that maybe a Sundowns can bring onto the pitch. But when you play against a Stellenbosch that doesn't have a clear bench idea, you can then hold that game and go into an extra time period where you know that a mistake is going to be made, where you know that maybe you just need that one moment when Dooley wins back a ball and plays it through, and now Apolis plays such an incredible... I just want to give a second. Apolis is showing Pirates that if the guys can learn how to run, Apolis is going to find you with that ball. We saw what he did in preseason. We saw what he did in this game with that ball that was played to Umuremi for the first goal, right? One back by Unduli, played through, they played, they've got the goal. Now, this is where Pirates comes alive. This is where Pirates comes alive. If there's one thing I've told you about Pirates, is that Pirates loves breakdown of game. And what happens is that the moment that goal goes in, Steve Barker has a choice to make, and he has to now start going at Pirates. He has to now start telling his players to go at Pirates, and you have to be a little bit risky. And that is where Pirates kills most teams. That sub of Mabasa coming in wakes up Umfukeng. Umfukeng now has a little bit more space to dictate because Stellenbosch is sacrificing players to go forward, and then they catch you on the break, and they catch you on the break, and a 1-0 becomes a 3-0, just like this. Mabasa loves the chaos. I remember Mabasa and Mfukeng love the chaos. I remember CRB when Nkota scored the 2 goals. It comes from a situation where they've absorbed, the other team gets desperate, then they hit them on the break and they score their goals. Pirates gets hot after they've broken the deadlock because they understand the situation that now you have to start playing. And all of that movement, having a focal point inside the box who's ready for the cutbacks, having a Moremi who you have to give credit to for giving that extra impetus, that extra running man, that extra pressure, having an Apolis that comes in on the other side, really now took advantage of the spaces that come from Stellenbosch. And again, the question goes to Steve Barker to say, what was the plan? All of your weapons are out now. What are you going to do? All of your weapons are out. And again, it goes back to the idea that pressure is a real thing, and managing that pressure and knowing what to do. We know about Coach Cardoso in pressure, for example. We know about Coach Mangoba. We know about Coach Rulani. When they got into some pressure situations in cup games, it doesn't go quite well, or they start doing weird things. So I'd love to give credit to Coach Wadu for also keeping to that traditional Pirates of how they change games, how they find that different gear when they're playing against other guys in finals, understanding that sometimes it's your job to just look at the guy. You can't blink, you can't move. You have to stick to what you believe and what you're coming into the game with until such a time that you see the other guy slip and you take advantage. So I want to give Coach Wadu credit for knowing his bench, understanding his bench, understanding that a Sipho Mbule right now is a 60-minute player at most. He's not going to give you a full 90 minutes. Sipho Mbule is not going to do that. So taking Apolis off and let him Mfukeng play is very similar to what Jose would do with versus Sundowns when he put Mfukeng on the bench and he brought him in the second half. I think it's understanding your bench and understanding the people who are playing and understanding the different phases of the game, which I want to give Pirates credit for as a culture of Pirates for being able to do that. So Pirates comes out 3-0 winners. You cannot now say that, hey, Baka made a mistake and this was a ref and that one was this and that one was this, without saying that Pirates has gone through all of those things and have been able to hold their nerve, all of those things, and have been able to win those games, all of those things, and been able to look all those teams in the eye and win. You have to give them credit. I know we're going to try to discredit with all of the other different things, but Pirates, 4-time winners in a row of the MTN 8 right now. That is the run that they're on. 100% deserved it. I do still feel like Stellenbosch gave it away a little bit, but Pirates has to be there to take advantage, and they've taken advantage of Stellenbosch, Sundowns, a lot of teams at this point. So give them credit for what they've done. Hopefully Coach Wadu can take this momentum and stretch it further than it's done usually for Pirates. So usually they take this momentum and they run it for a couple of months, and there comes usually like a break. I know we're going to do AFCON now, where they lose that rhythm and the momentum, that winning feeling, and they start dropping points. Hopefully Coach Wadu can arrest that fall. Coach Wadu can control those times and continue going with Pirates, because like I said, this Pirates team is incredible. If they can translate some of this poise, some of this focus that they have in cup games into the league, they're going to be an incredible team to play against and a hard team to play against, as they are already, but they need to buckle up and focus. When it comes to Stellenbosch, another final, another loss. I know they won the Carling Knockout 2 years ago, but they're getting into these finals and they're getting let down, I think, by two things. Number one, coaching, he's shaking now. He shakes and he makes weird decisions. But number two, you cannot keep selling your best players. That game looks different if a Van Wyk is still there. That game looks different if a Jaden Adams is still there. That game looks different if a Nduli is still there, actually. That game looks different if a Van Rooyen is still there. And you can go down the list. This is what Stellenbosch is going to have to learn. That, okay, now you want to play with the big boys at this level, you have to be able to change a game from the bench. or you have to at least have an understanding of when and how to change. I still feel like making all of those changes together also broke what they were doing, and gave Pirates a chance to get back into the game and gave Pirates confidence. So Stellenbosch need to learn from this, but Pirates, 4-time winners of the MTN 8, fully deserved. Well done, Mapagania. Well done to the happy people. I'll see you guys on the next one.